We are live. Hi, good evening. Welcome. Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Everyone is just getting the notification. We are live, so we will let everyone get a chance to come in and say hello. If you're here and joining us, thank you for joining us. Let us know you're here, as always. Say hello, where you're from, and tonight's question is, what is your favorite movie? So, what is your favorite movie? Hi, Lightson. Hey, Beth Carducci. Ciao. So if you're just joining us, we'll start in about a minute. Always give it 2 minutes for people to get in and get settled. I did get a haircut and I shaved, although I'm a little bristly. I grow fast, but I did. I'm in my midlife. Yeah, my midlife crisis shave. I'm going for 34. I'm here. Titanic. Titanic's a great movie. I mean, there was room on the door, right? There was room on the door. I feel like there was room on the door, but whatever. If you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from. And tonight's question is favorite movie. What is your favorite movie? And we'll get started in just about 30 seconds. Uh, Lots of Q&A today. I've got some other topics to talk about, and of course, Truman Show. I love yeah, I watched the Truman Show too, and whenever it's on TV, it catches me. It's really interesting. It's one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies for sure. Well, thank you, Valencia. I appreciate that. It's good to see you too. Yeah, Truman Show's a good one for sure. From Mayor, Minnesota. Hi, Laura. Uh, he could have fit on the door. I'm just saying. Um, Carmen in South Australia. Welcome, Carmen. Is it morning? Morning? Hi, Patricia, and thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, I did get a haircut and I shaved. I'm going for 34 now, so I'm trying to get younger as we go here. If you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from and favorite movie. Favorite movie is the topic. Hi, Carol and Jenna. Yeah, we love Home Alone too. Breakfast at Tiffany's is also awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. But yeah, if you're just joining us, say hello. Favorite movie, where you're from. And let's get rolling. So my name is Ethan Smith. I'm the national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which simply means I have OCD and I won't stop talking about it, which is true. I love Finding Nemo. Somebody wrote hello from St. Louis, and I was like, I don't know that movie. Hello from St. Louis. Hi, Gene. The Crow is really good too, for sure. Hi, Autumn. Real quick, let's get through some housekeeping. I don't think I finished. So yeah, I have OCD, and I won't stop talking about it because that's what we do. We advocate. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content and is not intended to replace therapy. I have to cough. Excuse me a moment. I'm done. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content, is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The International OCD Foundation is not a crisis hotline and should not be used if you are in distress or feel unsafe. If you are in crisis or ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room, call 911, or call the suicide prevention hotline at 800-273-8255. Also, we always want to be respectful of others and be kind, create a safe space as possible. This is being broadcast and recorded on various social media platforms. We always want to keep that in mind as we talk about personal information, but we are here to support each other. We support you, I support you, you support me. There's just a lot of support. So let's stay respectful and kind so we can have meaningful and healing and soulful conversation. Hey, Justin Hughes. Three Amigos is so good. I just wanted to do the Three Amigos thing right now, but I'm not going to stand up and do it. So there's Grace and Dave. I appreciate Justin. The shave, yes, for sure. Tiffany wrote, my son is 12 and working hard to fight against his OCD. Well, that's awesome. Tiffany, I'll get to that more in a second for sure. Hey, Kayla, New Orleans, Lion King. I love the Lion King. It's such a good movie. Hi, Summer in Austin, and hi from Kentucky. All right, so let's get started. So before I kind of launch into things that I might want to talk about, Just Desserts. Is that my weird short film, Dave? That's have you? Um, I want to throw it out to you. Is there anything on your mind that you want to talk about today? Anything that you're dying to get off your chest or share, or and if not, I will always get into topics that are sort of what I dealt with or things that I discovered this week. Definitely had some interesting thoughts and reflections this week that I'd love to share. But first off, let's definitely toss it out to you all. What's important to you? What do you want to talk about? What's top of mind? Questions, comments, thoughts. Feel free to feel free to launch us off, and then from there, I'll take it if nobody's writing anything. Avengers Endgame is great for sure. Um, Favorite so bad it's good movie is RV. RV is so bad it's good. I agree with you. Um, we've got some great comments here. So as I said, Tiffany, son is 12 and working hard to fight against OCD, which is fantastic. Tiffany, if your son's watching, tell him hello. It's amazing that he's fighting. He's hopefully got treatment and doing exposure response prevention at age 12, which is unbelievable. His whole life is ahead of him, and I wish him nothing but the best. Any questions you or your son have, please don't hesitate to let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. Um, Dave, Just Desserts is hilarious. You win like funniest inside joke ever. I haven't thought about that film in forever. Hey, Nikki Bradley, it is Skyla behind the scenes. She's my regular producer from here on out. She rocks. So everybody say hi, Skyla. Avengers Endgame is amazing. Jim wrote, OCD, futurizing, and overthinking are a pain. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of PTSD as well. You know, Jim, I have PTSD and OCD, and they can be exhausting. It's just it can be very exhausting combination of the mental review and the catastrophizing, and then any intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories, um, flashbacks that you may experience with PTSD is absolutely exhausting. Fortunately, there's very effective treatments for both. So if you're not currently in treatment, I would always suggest you perhaps reach out to a clinician, a licensed clinician, which we can go to IOCDF.org, their resource directory. I'm also happy to answer any questions you have on OCD or PTSD. But thank you for commenting, Jim. Really appreciate it. Kayla asks at 7:06 p.m. Do you know anyone that has fully recovered from real event OCD? Great question. Fully recovered is tricky, right? Because there's no cure for OCD, but there's definitely remission, there's definitely maintenance and management. And I know lots of individuals, including myself, including my fiance, that are in really good places from their real event OCD. So the short answer is yes, we can lead really meaningful, full lives. Whether it's real event OCD or contamination OCD or self harm OCD or harm OCD or sexual violent intrusive thoughts or taboo thoughts. Really, at the end of the day, OCD is OCD. But real event OCD, I know, can be tricky. We talked about it on a town hall last week, especially because it's rooted in something that actually happened that you may question morally. Would you do it again, or was it really bad? And that can really get us tripped up in our thought and our loops. But with that, with exposure and response prevention and other treatment modalities, you can absolutely put it in remission and live a gorgeous full life with lots of beautiful days. I always try to have more good days than bad. So yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, most definitely. Hi, Hannah in Canberra, Australia. A couple people from Australia tonight. Hope you're doing well. Oh, my comments just flung up. Michael Schramm, what's up? Um, I am a parent of 17-year-old son with COCD. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free, Carmen, and thank you for commenting. Always looking for ways to help my son. Yeah, if you have a specific comment, please weigh in. Patricia asks at 7:08 p.m., how and where do you personally start calming down your brain in an OCD crisis? Oh, what a great question. I think we can play with this idea of what is a crisis. Is it a panic attack? Is it just getting wrapped into the thoughts so intently that you're just stuck there, repeatedly obsessing and compulsing, whatever that compulsion is? You know, generally, what gets us stuck is the compulsion, right? We have the obsessive thought, or we have obsessive thoughts that create the discomfort and the anxiety, and then we gauge in whatever compulsion that is. Which in some respects can alleviate the anxiety fairly quickly. Um, for a long to short amount of time, but the more you've been doing it, the shorter it alleviates the anxiety and thus the terrible cycle. So, what to do in an OCD crisis? You know, at its worst, I know for me, OCD didn't feel, well, I should say, not compulsing didn't feel like a choice. It all felt very fused together, right? So I would have a scary thought, and then I would do what I thought was right to make myself feel better. And everything felt like I had to, I must. It did not feel like a choice at all. And in reality, it is a choice. We can choose not to compulse. But when you're, when you're in the throes of it, and OCD is right here in your face, it's really hard to find that space between obsession and compulsion, right? So the first thing we want to do is be super super compassionate with ourselves, right? We want to let ourselves have room and make room for the experience. Um, and then the next thing we want to do is start to recognize when we sort of come out of the sort of OCD coma, as I like to call it, right? So we're stuck in that repetitive cycle of obsessions and compulsions. And at a certain moment, you will come back to the present moment and realize that you're doing this, and you don't want to do it. In which case, that's a moment where you can make a choice. Now, choosing not to compulse is very hard. It's very hard. And I always say it most humbly when I talk about engaging in exposure and response prevention. But ERP, the gold standard of treatment, and other modalities of treatment like acceptance commitment therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy and metacognitive therapy are all really good therapies for helping you to get skills and tools to help you in an OCD crisis, right? So you can start recognizing when you're stuck and how to get unstuck. Um, and so, it isn't necessarily trying to calm down your brain. It's really in essence trying to live with the uncertainty of what your brain is throwing at you and being willing to experience the feeling and the thoughts. In doing that, over time, your brain will calm down, and especially in an OCD crisis, as long as you don't feed the OCD, it'll spike, and then the anxiety will come back down. There's also like very specific skills and tools you can do or you can use. So, for instance, when I'm really stuck, um, or I've been stuck in the past, or even dysregulated with really bad panic attacks, I'll go to the freezer, and you can also do this with oranges or something frozen, but I'll grab 2 ice cubes and put them in the palm of my hand and hold them until they melt. Generally, over the sink is a good idea because you'll get everything wet. But but hold the ice cubes. And what this does is this forces you to ground yourself in the here and now in the present, because anxiety only exists in the past or the future, right? What happened, what's going to happen. So you want to ground yourself in the present moment. Ice cubes, as we call it, is a really helpful way to do that because you start to focus on the pain that the cold is causing your hands, and it kind of takes you out of that dysregulation and that panic. Um, and generally, it will decrease your subjective units of distress, your SUDS, your anxiety, maybe by a point or two, just depending. It always brings it down just a notch for me. I haven't done it in a while, but in the past, it brought it down just a notch where I could sort of take over with skills and tools. You can also do what's called the five senses, which if you find yourself kind of trapped in this loop and you want to come back to the present moment, just start noticing colors. So things you can see, right? And then things you can hear, smell, touch, taste. And you kind of go through that in your surrounding area, and that also grounds you in presence, grounds you in the present. So some quick things, but at the end of the day, engaging in treatment and therapy, finding that space between the obsession, the feeling, and the compulsion, realizing that it's a choice. It is a choice, even if it doesn't feel like it, and making decisions from there. Patricia, that's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. Why does my comments keep skipping? I apologize. It's killing my flow. Um, it jumps to the top and I lose my place. So yeah, not cool platform. Jim wrote, yes, I have a psychiatrist and a therapist. That's fantastic. So yeah, you know, um, and it doesn't make it just because you have a psychiatrist and therapist, obviously doesn't make the experience any easier, but over time, hopefully working with them will continue to make, and it's, all of this, OCD, PTSD, it's all a marathon, not a sprint. And I know that's hard to see. Sometimes it's hard to see the little victories in the moment, but every day is a little victory. Every day that you're working toward your values, that you're willing to live with discomfort, that you're exposing yourself to the thing that makes you afraid, or that the trauma that you have from the past, if that's what they're asking you to do. All of those are little victories, and little victories suddenly add up to a moment where you suddenly realize you're not as bothered, you're not as triggered, you're not having that memory or that intrusive memory or that flashback, and suddenly like, oh, things are a little bit better. And so everything adds up. It's all cumulative. I'm never saying that word again because I can't say it to begin with. Yes, I just realized I said fiance, Beth. It was very exciting, for sure. You're very welcome, Kayla. And thank you to you and Katie, or me and Katie. Hi, Jenny, from Houston, first time. So grateful for this group. Jenny, welcome. I was born and raised in Houston, so a fellow Houstonian here in the house. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Happy to answer them. Jim Leffler wrote, Jim Callner has a saying that I believe he got from Sharon Davis: if a thought doesn't bring you inner peace, don't follow it. I try to remind myself of that. That's an excellent quote. And we hear a lot of examples, or thoughts are like clouds, or thoughts are like leaves. Ideally we want to watch them from an objective perspective and let them float by, or let them float by, right? And try not to attach meaning, attach purpose, and try to recognize them for what they are. Thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are not truths. Thoughts are thoughts. Jim, you're gonna make me play my favorite game. Everybody who's watching, close your eyes. I'll give you a second to close your eyes. I'm gonna prove this right now. Now, I want you all to think very, very powerfully, with all your heart. Think the following 3 words: I'm a banana. Keep your eyes closed, clench your fists. I really want you to give it your all. I'm a banana. I'm a banana. I'm a banana. I'm a banana. Okay, now open your eyes. Feel free to look at yourself, at your body, if there's a mirror around. If you're a banana, please comment. I know it'll be harder to type because you won't have arms, but you'll still be appealing. I'm sorry, it was bad. Point is, you're not a banana, right? Obviously, unless you are, and then this whole thing is destroyed. But the reality of it is we are not our thoughts. And as powerful as thoughts can be, and as powerful as thoughts can feel, right? That does not make them fact, even if it feels like our gut is telling us something. So to Jim's point, we don't have to follow the thoughts that feel uncomfortable, even though it sometimes feels irresponsible not to do that. Moving right along. Meg wrote, my biggest trigger right now is having things to be right or just right. It is hard to plan to do unplanned things. Any suggestions for spontaneity? Absolutely, Meg. So be willing to do it wrong, and all the yuck and the discomfort that comes along with that, right? So, I lost my place. Okay, so just like with any other OCD symptom, we're going to address it like exposure, response, prevention, right? So this idea of having to be right or just right, that requires planning, as you've said, because it has to be exactly the way you feel it has to be. Or maybe it's a feeling, maybe you think it's a preference, but regardless, yeah, it's hard to do unplanned things, because what if it doesn't go right? So what we want to do is we want to challenge you to be willing to go do something spontaneous and not have it be right, or have you feel like it isn't right and still do it anyway. It's this idea of, we're human beings, and we're very emotion based. We're very emotion based. And so if we don't feel like something, then we typically don't want to do it and have to work toward that, and this is very similar, right? If you don't feel good or feel right about doing something, then you don't want to do it and have to fight that urge. But the idea is we want to follow our values. We were willing to put this feeling of right aside and replace it with something that's meaningful and important to you, Meg. So a simple analogy is people who go to the gym. You drive by the gym, you're supposed to go, you don't want to go, you rather go home and get a drink and relax on the sofa, but you know, for your health and for your well-being and for your stress and all that, you're going to go to the gym anyway, regardless of how you feel. And sometimes you leave the gym feeling better and sometimes you don't. You know, this is one of those things where I'm going to bring the ick with me. I'm going to feel this uneasiness to do it right or not do it right, or what if it's wrong, and I'm going to bring it with me, not to feel better, but just to do it. Be willing to not have it just right. Best case scenario is you do it, you have a blast, you feel better. That's awesome. Still, best case scenario is you do it, you don't have a blast, you feel miserable, but you fought your OCD. They're both win-win situations, right? And the goal in doing these exposures, something like if you had to do something spontaneously, for instance, if you promised yourself the next time somebody randomly calls and invites you to do something, or if I see your picture of your lovely family, I'm just going to take a gander, that's your husband. If you're in the car and your husband says, hey, let's do blah, 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 and your OCD immediately goes, no, 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 wait, didn't plan it. Throw it up in the air, be willing to sit with the uncertainty of it all and go with it, feeling as uncomfortable as you possibly can. And every time that discomfort comes up, remember why you're doing that, for your family, for your husband, for your kiddos, and all of those reasons. And over time, right, that discomfort, that feeling, that need to, it'll go away. It will go away. And suddenly you will be the crazy, spontaneous person that you dream of. I'm really bad with spontaneity. Not so much for just right. But I too like to plan. Actually, I can. I'm imagining what my fiance is thinking when we go for long walks, and I don't know we're going for a long walk. I get so frustrated at her because if I always say I want to plan to sweat. If I plan that I'm going to sweat, then I have no problem getting all nasty and sweaty. But if I haven't planned it, I always get pissed off. Not real pissed, but so it's very funny because we'll be out or going to do something, and she'll say, "Hey, let's take a walk," and I'll be like, "Sure," and then I'll start sweating, and I'll be really aggravated that I'm sweating because I didn't plan for it. If I'd have planned for it, that I'd have wore shorts and a t-shirt, and I would have brought some water and a high thread count towel, and I would have been set for sweating. But it's I joke, but it's kind of similar, right? This idea of, are we willing to be uncomfortable? Why we do something anyway that's meaningful to ourselves and other people. So give it a try. Next time you have an opportunity, be willing to feel uncomfortable and do it anyway. Laura, 7:11 p.m. Why does my whole family keep judging my mental illness? I wish I could answer that question, Laura. I genuinely don't know. Most judgment and stigma comes from individuals that don't understand or know, or potentially have some other stigma around faith or ethnicity or something else. Could be the way they're raised, could have been family history or what they had to deal with. There's a million reasons why. And I'm sorry for that. And you're not alone at all. I can't tell you how many people I hear from that talk about this particular issue, whether it's judgment from a family or friend or stigmatizing or not willing to, so, this isn't, it's an exclamation mark. So I hear you, but, I would ask you a follow-up question, which is it important to you that they understand? Or obviously it's important that they not judge you. Nobody wants to be judged or made to feel stigmatized because of something that they can't help. A mental illness is no different than any other disease or disorder. So the reason I'm inquiring is because maybe we can come up with some action items to either help them understand in a meaningful way, or to help you sit with what it feels like, and maybe to remove yourself from uncomfortable situations or situations that aren't healthy for you. And again, without having lots of detail, it's hard to make suggestions, but I'm sorry for that. You're not alone, and hopefully there are ways that we can educate your family in meaningful ways that will help alleviate a lot of that judgment. You do not deserve to be judged for an illness. I'm sure there's no different than judging someone for having cancer or diabetes. So I'm sorry for that, Laura, and maybe we can continue discussing that. But thank you, because I know there's other people that are going through the same thing, and now they know they're not alone. So I appreciate the comment for sure. Lights in at 7:11. She's not at they're not at 7:11. That's the time that they wrote the comment. But either way, get me a Slurpee if you're there. What did you say to the therapist when explaining your symptoms? When I did my intake, I called intrusive thoughts visions. Lol. Still on the wait list and convinced they probably think I'm a psychic. You know, I think that I don't think there's any wrong way to explain your symptoms. I think that we're only as educated, or we only understand as much as we understand in the moment, right? So if we've never been to one of these groups, if you don't have any insight or education into OCD, you're just going to explain it the best you can. I explained my OCD symptoms with total certainty, to a point where when I was in a psychiatric hospital, I got diagnosed as psychotic because I didn't say that I had any doubt about the things that I was afraid of. I simply said, "This is going to happen." So we can be psychic together. Maybe open up our own um, psychic hotline. I don't know. I don't think Madame Cleo's around anymore, so there's a space for us. But that's to say, would I judge myself, or be hard on myself because I did that? No, I didn't know any better. So when they asked me questions about what symptoms I was having, I would say things like, I'm going to hurt myself, or I'm going to hit my head, or I'm going to accidentally poison myself, not I'm worried, or I think I am, or what if I do? So, I don't know that there's a right way to say it, but if you're here, I would say that individuals with OCD, I can speak from personal experience, um, you know, because you can get worked up in the moment, it's very easy to make statements um, in all or nothing ways, right? So we might say, oh, like I said, you may speak in absolutes. For instance, you know, if I touch that, I will get sick, or if I touch that, my parents will die. And what we really are thinking is that I'm afraid that if I touch that, something may happen to my family, or I may get sick. Now, what percentage you believe that is different for everybody, and you can believe it 99%, right? But the difference between OCD and other disorders is that there is that doubt component. There is that at least 1% where you recognize, I don't fully believe that, but I'm scared not to pay attention to the part that doubts it, so I'm going to pay attention to it, right? So I would say, if you don't know any better, then don't stress about how you describe your symptoms. But if you're here right now, I would say try to describe them as honestly as possible, and try to describe exactly what you're feeling, and what the experience is like, and what you're afraid of. And that's why also finding the right therapist is really important, or finding the right clinician, finding somebody that has OCD, that understands OCD, and has a lot of experience with it, so um, you don't have to feel like the responsibility is on you to get it right, because it shouldn't be, right? The person that's giving you the intake should be able to help tease out and ask questions of you to help you get to that place. Uh, Skyla put a link to the resource directory on the IOCDF website. Even there, if you find a therapist on the IOCDF website, even still advocate for yourself. If you call, ask them, do they do exposure response prevention? How many years have they been practicing? Where did they get their license and degree from? Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Find individuals, because just because they're a psychologist or psychiatrist doesn't mean that they specialize in OCD. Lord knows you've heard my story. I went to plenty of them, and I'm sure your experience the same. Second of all, just because they do cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't mean that they do exposure response prevention. And exposure response prevention is really the gold standard for treatment of OCD, not cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy is the umbrella. ERP lives under the umbrella. So ERP is a cognitive behavioral therapy, but not all CBT is ERP, right? So great question. They may think you're psychic. Offer to no, but at the end of the day, they're probably just busy. Um, but it's okay to call them. I remember also when I was referring to my OCD, I would say, like, my OCD says, right? So the doctor, of course, that didn't know OCD was like, oh, so you hear things? I'm like, no. Well, you just said your OCD says. And I was like, well, my OCD does say. Oh, so you hear things? I'm like, no, I don't hear anything. It's like, oh my God, get a degree. Anyway, so lights in. Hopefully that helped. Um, Andy, to go to 7:12 p.m. My 10-year-old daughter has experienced self-harm OCD. How can I handle this situation? Recently jumped off electric scooter, going about 10 miles, and hurt herself pretty bad. I don't know if we talked to you before, Andy, on the real OCD. I would honestly have her, but if not, thank you for the question. Honestly, I would have her assessed if she hasn't already. I don't know. I think if you are the same person, I think you did note that she had a diagnosis of OCD. There's a variety of reasons. I personally don't feel that I have the expertise to answer that question. If it is in fact OCD, only OCD, then engaging in exposure response prevention along with other modalities of treatment for OCD is obviously highly recommended. But there may be other things at play. Getting your daughter a full intake and evaluation, especially after this, would probably be highly helpful and suggestive to make sure that she's safe and okay, and we get to the bottom of what's going on. But I would tell everyone just what I tell you. If it's around harm OCD, then generally you'd want to engage in exposure and response prevention to treat. So you're welcome, Patricia. I'm sorry, I know I'm behind. I was going to go into some topics, but I see there's lots of comments, so we can keep diving into questions for sure. Let's see here. Hi, Ethan. I was on Twitch. Okay. See, Laura, you're not alone. Summer wrote, family can be the worst. 17 years of dealing with OCD, and my family still says, just get over it, and thinks I am just lazy and don't feel like doing anything. It's just beyond maddening. I'm so sorry, Summer. Yeah, you're not alone, and oh, hi, Leanne. Good to see you. You're not alone. And I think that, we can talk about, there's lots of ways to approach this. And I don't know how I would feel if my parents were like that. I'm fortunate that my parents have always been, well, before they understood, they would say things like, people in this country have to worry about, food and water, and you're worrying about this ridiculous stuff. Like, they would say very stigmatizing things, but they were also very pro, let's figure this out. And once they understood what was going on, they no longer said that. But, can you show them videos? Can you show them articles? Sometimes it's helpful to find articles of celebrities or individuals that are in the media that they may like or relate to, that also, and they don't have to suffer from OCD, but are they struggling with anxiety or PTSD or an eating disorder, but some sort of mental health issue, right? Where they would read that and go, oh, I'm so sorry. And then, well, mom, or dad, what I'm experiencing is along those same lines. So, and kind of ease them in with, hey, read this article, or hey, check out this YouTube video. Here's a link. There's little ways of getting in there, or hey, would you mind watching this community conversation with me? But thank you, Summer, for sharing that. And if there's anything we can do to support, please don't hesitate to let us know. Katie wrote, I'm the fiance. Yes, Katie is my fiance, and she's amazing. She actually has, I'll pitch you later, Katie. Jordan wrote, hey, Ethan, thanks for everything as always. Really enjoy the real event false memory convo. Is response prevention alone enough? I can't seem to get triggered from planned exposures. Great question, Jordan. So not necessarily, right? ERP is the gold standard of treatment, and there are many ways to approach ERP. And if you're having trouble getting triggered from a planned exposure, there are a couple things that can be done. So the short answer is maybe, right? So exposure response prevention is the gold treatment. It works for many, doesn't work for everyone. That doesn't mean that it can't work for everyone, but there might be a need for a medication. There might be a need for an adjunctive treatment therapy like acceptance commitment therapy or dialectical behavioral therapy or something else in general. You might need unplanned exposures. That's what my therapist did. I gave them permission to surprise me with exposures, which were absolutely horrible. To a certain extent, if you're having trouble getting triggered from planned exposures, and I have a feeling you have, but if you haven't, what does the conversation look like with your therapist in terms of what can you do to be triggered if they have ideas? And perhaps it'd be worth looking into, additional modalities of treatment, or even another therapist if you think you can't get triggered, or at least consulting. Not telling you to switch, not telling you have a crappy therapist, not saying that at all. Simply saying, like, we might want to get outside the box. The other thing is, though, before you get outside the box, is to also reflect on yourself, right? How are you engaging in the ERP? Are you willing to be scared? Are you willing to be scared and intimidated? I'm sorry, not intimidated. Are you willing to be afraid and in the moment and get out of your head and be willing to trick yourself into believing the exposure in an effort to, get better and fend off the OCD, right? So there's also a component of asking yourself how you're engaging in the ERP, and if you're approaching it with authenticity and honesty in an effort to, actually trigger yourself and make yourself believe of the thing that you're afraid of in an effort to then sit with the discomfort and let that habituating go down and then trigger yourself again, if that makes sense. Katie's texting me. Let's see what she has to say. I think also acknowledging how to respond to the exposures coming up in the moment, using each one as an opportunity for response prevention. Excellent point, Katie. I think that's in regards to what I was just saying. So covered. But either way, if that was the question before, now it's good advice. Katie wrote, "I'm far too excited when I hear that." For those of you that are new, Katie's also a lead advocate with the IOCDF. We got engaged at the beginning of April. And yeah, we're each other's people, and she's on here, and I'm madly in love with her, and we love advocating together. Y'all are our community. Y'all are our home, and we're so grateful to be a part of this community and be able to give back, and for you to support and give to us. So thank you for that. Love Lana. Hey, thank you for the congrats. Carmen wrote, "My son struggles 7:17 p.m. Sorry, Skyla. My son struggles to get up in the mornings to meet his commitments. What can I say to help him?" Great question, Carmen. I almost called you Karma, which would be a cool name too. There may be some Karmas on here. We don't know. I would ask a few questions. Adult son, a minor son, under 18. It can make a difference. With a kid under 18, you can just grab them by the arm and throw them. But that's a joke. Don't do that. I think that at the end of the day, there's a few things we can do, right? And this is where age is sort of important, depending on, like, if you have an 8-year-old, I don't know that you could explain this to them versus, late teens, early 20s, or even an older son. But I think that there's a few things to do. I think that it's okay to struggle. So that's the first thing, acceptance of the feeling. But are you able to get up out of bed anyway and do your commitments? Can you do it feeling gross and uncomfortable, similar to what we were describing up above, right? And so that's number one. And also, of course, first thing is first is, are you working with a clinician or expert to help with this, whether it's OCD, whether it's depression, whatever the diagnosis is. But first of all is the willingness to meet the discomfort where it is and bring it with you to the morning commitments. Other questions you can ask are, well, what are you losing if you don't get up? What are you missing? Are those things important to you? Feelings and emotions can be such a strong motivator, and can be very convincing to help us decide not to do certain things, right? And I know that'll be an easy argument to say, yeah, but I feel really crappy, or I don't feel like it, or even I don't have any oh my gosh, why am I blanking on the word? I don't feel any motivation. And when you don't have motivation, it's really hard to move forward. But start identifying the things that your son may lose by not doing things that are important to him and important to you. What does that look like? And start writing down things that are important to him that he would lose by not doing it, and also break it down. So commitments plural, right? If there's multiple things, and I don't know the severity, but let's say there's 10 things, and currently your son's not getting up out of bed at all. Well, then let's break it down, right? So let's just say that let's get up and take a shower and get dressed, and then if you want to go back to bed, go back to bed, right? And then after a couple of days, all right, let's take a shower, get dressed, and have breakfast, and start adding things to it. But little victories are the key to success with this. And so you can also break things down into more manageable bites and create sort of action items and reward systems and things like that. Again, depending on age, but hopefully that resonates depending on how old your son is. Thank you for asking, Carmen. Appreciate it. All right, moving on down. Andy the Goat also wrote, "My daughter also has sexual intrusive thoughts and is constantly coming to me to share these thoughts. What can I do, say, in these moments?" Yeah, sexual intrusive thoughts are really tough, for sure. And again, I think that the best thing you could do for your daughter is, to consult with a therapist or a psychologist, a clinician, and not only to help her, but help you understand. And this is something is so helpful with parents is, we want to take the guesswork away. I don't know why I said we, I'm not a clinician, but we want to take the guesswork away from guessing what you have to do in a moment where your daughter is scared, or your son is upset or not willing to go to bed, or your daughter seeking reassurance from a scary thought, right? We want to take the guesswork out. And so, what a clinician, a therapist can help you do is create a plan, an action plan, and action items, and essentially teach you how to respond to your son or daughter in helpful and meaningful ways that doesn't help the OCD, right? It helps your kiddo, and continues to lessen the power of OCD. Um, so that's the number one goal, in connecting. Now, if you have a kiddo that isn't willing to get therapy or isn't willing to engage with a therapist, that doesn't mean that you can't. And that's the big nugget here is, if you need guidance, if you need suggestions, don't not be willing to connect with an expert in an effort to understand what your child is going through, even if they're not willing to, so you can then help your child. Because what ends up happening in that case is that you will learn things and how to talk to them and how to behave, how not to reassure them, not to enable them, right? That will systematically move them towards a place of wanting to go to therapy and wanting to get help, because life will start to get a little uncomfortable as you refuse to say things or do things that they're asking you to do. So, most important to if they're not willing to get therapy, get therapy for yourself and learn how to behave and how to respond to kids. But sexual intrusive thoughts can be really intimidating and really scary. I have them, and also, and you said your daughter is 10 years old, so I would really speak to a therapist, maybe that specializes in kiddos. And again, if I'll give my email out at the end if you have any questions, or I can refer, I'm more than happy to, for sure. Badhan, hopefully I got that right. Intrusive images based on a disturbing story I read some years ago gets me freaked out. When I try to sit with them, can't stand the abhorrence so long. What to do with this feeling of disgust? Great question. So you're not alone. It's not uncommon. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that have seen something on TV, or something that they didn't mean to see. In fact, I have a story, but I have a similar image that I saw on a show once that has since dissipated, but it really haunted me for quite a while. So first of all, well done on trying to sit with it. I think that's awesome, and I totally understand um, that it feels like that you can't. So I want to hit on that word, you can't stand it. So it feels like I can't, and I know that because it felt the same way for me. But that I can't is really a choice, right? It's that I won't stand the absorbent so long. I refuse to. After a certain amount of time, it gets too uncomfortable, the anxiety gets too high, and I'm not going to do it anymore. Now, I'm not at all suggesting that you're consciously making that decision. I'm not suggesting that this is super easy to do and I'm just flippantly throwing it out at you. I'm simply acknowledging that we have a choice. And the more we make that choice, the easier that choice becomes. So, what I would tell you is challenge yourself. So you're already sitting with it and you try. What would it be like to sit with it longer? Can you time yourself? Can you say, I'm going to sit with this for 10 minutes? If you haven't been able to, maybe it's 5 minutes. Can you do 20 instead of 10? Can you do 30 instead of 20? How long are you willing to sit with it? And also, what does sitting with it look like for you? Does sitting with it look like just sitting on the sofa, like trying not to think about it? Are you engaging in value-driven activities? Are you watching TV? Are you watching a movie? Are you reading and it keeps popping up and you keep having to come back to the present moment? I know it feels like it's ingrained in there, sort of like a burned-in picture on a TV screen. But what happens is when you fear the monster and you keep fearing the monster, then the monster will keep coming, right? When you start to embrace this idea of like, hey, bring on the thought, like bring on the image. I don't care anymore. I don't care. Bring it. I'll be afraid. Let it be there forever. And I apologize if I'm sounding triggering, but let it be there forever. What if I think about this and never stop? Right. And the minute we start to sort of embrace and accept that fear, and really just scare ourselves into believing that, the minute we start taking the power away from the OCD, and in this case, the image, from the story. And so the more willing you are to experience the image, the less the image will appear, right? So we just want to challenge that notion of, are you willing for it to appear? Are you willing to sit with it longer? What are you doing while you're sitting with it, etc.? Hopefully that was helpful. Um, let's keep cruising right along here. Hey, Mayatzik, are you here? Beth Carducci, thank you, Ethan. You're welcome, Meg. Beth Carducci wrote, people really lack in the ability to have empathy. They don't get it because they can't even imagine how someone else feels. That could also be from lack of knowledge, like you said. Yeah, for sure. Katie confirmed that I have to be prepared to sweat. That is a true story. I would not lie. Dirty Dancing is a great movie. Thank you for that. Summer wrote, my sister planned to go to an indoor event that turned out to be an outdoor event in the afternoon in Texas. Planning to be hot, definitely. See, maybe that's why, because I'm from Texas and I was tricked many times into sweating. And especially like when you're wearing suits and things like, it's just, just saying, I appreciate you feeling my pain. So thank you for that. Where was I? Jeff Lethleroyd, another I've heard is thanks for sharing. I'm not caring when the monkey mind is bugging you. I think that may also be a Sharon Davies saying, don't want to misquote anyone. My OCD will get revved up. No, be willing to misquote, Jim. Sorry, I called you Jeff. Be willing to misquote. Let's do it. It's the wrong quote. Everybody's mad. No, thank you for sharing. I like that. Thanks for sharing. I'm not caring. That's a great way to look at the OCD, right? The thought, this is great. The abhorrent image pops up. Thanks for sharing. I'm not caring. See ya. That's nice. Let it be there. Put it on your shoulder. Keep doing your thing. I like that, Jim. Keep the quotes coming for sure. And thank you, Lights, and definitely learned a lot from this channel. Thanks for the answer, Ethan. You're so welcome. Let's see. Let me try to get down to some questions that come in a little later. Oh, Eric B is in town. Hey, Eric. Eric's in Houston also, and good to see you. I hope you're doing well, man. Megan Lewis said, my son just left at 7:34 p.m. I'm so sorry, Skyla. I'm supposed to read the timestamps. I'm not doing it. She's got to search through everything. I'm being a horrible host, and I apologize. So I'm going to go sit in a corner after this. My son just left an OCD program after 1 week. We couldn't talk him into staying. We wish he would have stayed, but we will continue to support him here at home. What are good steps to do now? Okay, Megan. I connect with this a lot. I really didn't want to stay, and I really wanted to go home. I think that there's a lot of ways to support. I don't know if you're continuing outpatient or intensive outpatient therapy. At the end of the day, this is a process, and it's not a perfect process, right? And sometimes individuals with OCD may not be ready for residential, and that's okay. I went through 10 months of intensive outpatients. That's 5 sessions a day, 5 days a week before I went to residential. And even then, I mean, they almost had to chain me to keep me there. And my parents, kind of refused to let me come home, but it was after quite a lot. And I don't know, Megan, I don't know your kiddo's history or yours, and I'll give out my email at the end, and feel free, we can have a conversation about it. But there's a few things I would suggest, and I kind of alluded to a lot of them up top when I talked about what parents can do. But A, connect with a therapist or clinician. B, what can you do to not reassure, not enable? How do you respond to him versus his OCD? How old? I don't know how old your son is, but if he's an adult, what are small systematic changes that you can make to help him want to change and want to fight his OCD? So an example of this is, right, if he's living at home, are you charging him rent? Is he cooking his own meals? Is he paying for his cell phone, right? So you could work with the therapist, and it's slow. You would never do everything all at once, but it would be like, okay, I'm simplifying this, but it's like, what if he asks you to turn off his lights for him, so when he goes to bed. So you're like, I'm not going to turn off the lights, and I refuse to turn off the lights when you go to bed. I love you. I care about you. I don't want to make you sicker. I don't want to help your OCD. I want to help you. And in doing that, the next step, I'm not making any sense at the moment. I cross-wired I'm willing to admit when I get confused, and I had 2 ideas simultaneously, and they don't connect, and I don't know where I was going with that. So the first thing is do everything I just said. No, but the idea is the concept of, not engaging, reassuring, and enabling in an effort to help your child not be OCD. So I think separating their OCD from them is really important, and you can communicate that with them and say, I am not willing to do this because it helps your OCD, and I am not a slave to your OCD. I love you. The second piece of it is, and I was talking about the systematic changes, is when you are not, let's say, paying rent, paying your cell phone, cooking your meals, you have more time to engage in the OCD, right? you have more time. And I know I speak from personal experience with this, that, the more that was done for me, the more time I had to give to OCD, right? So it's this idea of working with a therapist and slowly and systematically removing ways that they can indulge in their own OCD. So, if he has to cook his own meals, then he's either going to not eat, indulge OCD, or he's going to do something value driven, like cook a meal, and either not obsess or obsess while he does it, right? But not compulse because he has to cook, or compulse while he's cooking. But either way, the more he does it, right? And then if he wants a cell phone, maybe he needs to earn money. Maybe there are ways to earn money from you. Maybe he needs to get a job. But I think that thank you, Skyle. So your son is 19, yeah, an adult. So, there's lots of ways to approach it in which to get him to move toward change and engaging in treatment and therapy, especially as you start to take away take away things that he loves to do, and necessities of life. Again, it is slow, it is methodical, it is under the supervision of a clinician and expert, but those are good steps to do now, is get with the clinician, get with an expert, and see if he's willing to go. That's even better. If he's not willing to go, you go and understand what you need to do for you. So Jeff wrote, what would an ERP at 737, ERP or CBT be for thinking someone won't respond, talk to me because they want to avoid me, dislike me, always going to worse reasons? Yeah, for sure. So it would be an exposure response prevention. And I think an example we can play with for thinking someone wouldn't respond, talk to me because they want to avoid me is embrace that thought. Retell yourself, yes, they're not responding to me, and because they hate me. I'm a terrible person. They dislike me, and that is most likely why they're not talking with me. And that's going to bring up a lot of ick and anxiety. And your goal is to sit with that anxiety until it passes, and do that again. I'm just throwing an example. Don't necessarily do that, because again, I'm not a clinician, by no means a therapist in any way. But this idea is to embrace the fear of what's going on, kind of sit with it, let it be there. As your quote was, Jim, the caring quote, don't care. Acknowledge that it's there. So an ERP would be something to that effect, where you're just embracing the thoughts that you're afraid of, and doubling down on them, right? So, what are reasons they would dislike you? Maybe I smell, maybe I'm ugly, maybe I'm just no good, maybe I'm morally terrible person. And you know what? So be it. So be it. Maybe if that's what the case is, then that's what the case is. I'm pretty certain it's OCD, but it may not be, and I'm willing to live with that uncertainty. Something like that. I'll also send you an invoice for that. Let's see here. Gib asked at 7:45, can cannabis help with OCD? I don't know a lot of the research around cannabis. I can tell you that in general, weed and cannabis is not helpful for engaging in exposure and response prevention, mostly because it decreases your anxiety level. And so you need your anxiety to be able to engage successfully and effectively in ERP, right? And so when individual, and there's a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue between around this conversation, and you may be talking about CBD oil or something else, but in general, this idea of marijuana, because it lowers your anxiety, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you're engaging in ERP, you need to get anxious in order to get better. Also, some research has shown that paranoia increases with individuals with OCD and marijuana. So that may not be true in everybody's case, but in general, we don't recommend cannabis specifically for OCD. But you can always Google clinical trials and see if there's anything going on with that. I didn't want to skip that. I think we're actually heading. Oh, we got 5 more minutes. See if I can knock these out of the way. Yes. I found my anxiety worsens, but I think respond to it differently. Eric, anxiety being bad. Okay. Oh my God, we did it. Huh? This is awesome. We got through all the questions. So, I think that Eric wrote, interesting, Ethan. It could be because my OCD makes me kind of paranoid to begin with. That is entirely true, and then we can get existential about this conversation. Um, but Beth wrote, being here with others who understand you could help. We all know what you are going through. You are not alone. That is so true. And Jenny wrote, thank you so very much and look forward to being part of these Tuesday nights. We appreciate you, Jenny. So we got 5 minutes left. Let me ask you a question. Do you all enjoy this sort of rapid fire Q&A? Do you want me to talk on some topics? Do you want to do a combination of them both? When we first started this live stream, I would usually start with a topic and then we'd spend the back half of the hour answering questions. And the reason we changed this to community conversations was because it was very much a conversation. And so I really enjoyed answering questions and asking. But I also want to hear your thoughts and ideas and suggestions. You all have such amazing insight into your own journeys. And, where I may not connect with someone that's struggling, I know you do. There's so many comments in here where other people can go, like Summer's comment, about her family. As it connects to the other woman's with struggling with her family, not understanding OCD. So instantly answered, Jim. Wow, no, I'm just kidding. So, and I apologize for not remembering your name. Clearly, my brain is a little fried today. But the point is that you all have so much to offer and have so much insight and wisdom into your own journeys. And I know some of you feel like, oh, how could I ever advocate, or what do I have to offer someone else? But the reality is your story impacts somebody greatly. And every time I hear a piece of your story, it reminds me of something about my story, a reason why I want to keep doing what I'm doing, keep advocating, keep working my program, and continuing to keep OCD in its place. You inspire me to do that. You hold me accountable. You hold me more accountable than my therapist or anyone else in my life, because I have to come talk to you and answer to you every week, right? So like, I don't want to sit here and be a false prophet. I'm not saying I don't do it perfectly. I've never told you that I don't compulse. I've never told you that I don't obsess, right? I've always shared with you what I'm struggling. But when I'm at that crossroads where I have to decide what to do, I think about this group and think about all the advocacy that I do and know that I want to walk the walk and not just talk. So I know a lot of people are saying, questions. It's nice to comment or ask questions here because sometimes there's nowhere else to say it or get it, for sure. And thank you, Nick. Also, we do have Ask the Experts where you can answer questions as well, but maybe we'll do a combination of both. And always feel free to bring your thoughts, advice, topics. You all do such a great job, and you really make this a sincere pleasure. With that, let's wrap up. Just some quick announcement. Well, first of all, I want to thank the IOCDF and Skyla behind the scenes for crushing it. And thank you so much for the chat. Skyla is awesome. She does all our social media now too. And she's just really just a massive asset to the IOCDF. And we're really excited about Skyla joining the team. So thank you, Skyla. Real quick, next Tuesday, and I'll give out my email address at the end, as always. So if you have questions, comments, if you disagree with me, if you have a topic idea, please feel free to email me. But first, next Tuesday, you can join Lead Advocate and my fiance, Katie O'Dunn, for a brand new Faith and OCD Roundtable at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can ask questions live or submit them to iocdf.org/peace of mind. Also, tomorrow's Research Roundtable will be moved to Thursday, May 19th at 12 p.m. So that is no Research Roundtable tomorrow. Mark your calendars. Thursday, May 19th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Registration is open for the annual IOCDF Research Symposium in July. We invite researchers and students to share data and findings from their latest OCD and related disorders research. This year's symposium will be hybrid in person and an online event. You can learn more and register at iocdf.org/symposium. Registration is open for the 27th annual OCD conference taking place in Denver in July. It's getting closer. I'm super, super excited about this. I really hope y'all can make it to Denver. I would love to meet you all in person. That would be so awesome. It's a special event for the OCD community and related disorders, including individuals, family supports, therapists, researchers. You can learn more at iocdf.org/OCDCon. It really is just an unbelievable event. I should do a community conversations on all about the conference and give you more insight if you haven't been or you're wondering more about it, but definitely check out the website. And finally, join us for 1 Million Steps for OCD Walk this June and October. You can find a walk near you and register today at iocdf.org/walk for a day of community, advocacy, and fun. All right, we have 1 minute. This live stream is one of many. You can see the entire schedule and submit questions and suggestions for future streams at iocdf.org/ peace of mind. You can also view recordings of past live streams on IOCDF's YouTube channel, youtube.com/IOCDF. And remember to like and subscribe to get notified when live streams are scheduled. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, IRS.gov. I don't know. I don't know that we're broadcasting there, but if we are, you'll see it. Yeah. And finally, if you need resources, always never hesitate to go to IOCDF.org. Tons of great stuff, a treasure trove, as our exec director, Jeff Szymanski, says. Finally, if you have any questions for me or comments, I only give it out during this particular conversation. You can email me at justethan@iocdf.org. There you go. I'm the only one that answers that email. I answer it. Just give me a few days, but I always get back to you. And so please feel free to answer. It's a safe space. It's between you and me. So please feel free to bring any comments, questions, or continued conversations from here to that email address. So with that, thank you, Skyla. Thank you, IOCDF. Thank you, all of you, as always, for spending your Tuesday evening with me. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. And we'll see you 2 weeks from tonight. Thanks so much. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.